Jacksonville, Arkansas. Dr. Don R. Gibson is the pastor. Tune in again for another uplifting message. And remember, don't let anybody steal your joy. Traditional, contemporary, choirs, quartets, soloists. It's all for the kingdom. And it's all JoyNet. Bless you and welcome to Lamb of God Ministry Broadcast, The Power to Change, a thinking gospel, brought to you by your host, Reverend James McRussell Lamb. And now, Pastor Lamb.
This is James McRussell Lamb, and welcome once again to The Power to Change. This is, of course, Black History Month, and we have been looking at all kinds of information, and I want you to know that the information is based on facts. One of the astonishing things that I have found in my research, I'm astonished at the amount of available knowledge that is around us. One book I read in my personal research used citations from more than 900 books, journals, and assorted other sources from experts in the field of study from different time periods up to the most modern Egyptologists in order to create masterful historical presentation of the truth based on facts of Egypt's history. The Egyptian religion was well known, without equal in the known world. As the Greek historian Herodotus wrote in his histories almost 2,500 years ago, the Egyptians were religious to the excess beyond any other nation in the world. Over its immense life of several millennia, hundreds of millions of people engaged in the Egyptian religion, with its major themes and motifs well known and highly respected. In fact, it has been estimated that some 500 million Egyptians were mummified during the time of the pharaohs, indicating that there were at least 1 billion followers of the Egyptian religion. Any competing faith would be hard-pressed to overturn this deep and enduring reverence for the Egyptian religion and its God, and would need to incorporate as much of the Egyptian mythos and ritual into itself as was possible to gain any attraction at all. And the fascinating thing about our history is, when you look through the Bible back to the land of Kemet, the land of the blacks, you'll find that many of the stories that are in the Bible, many of the ideas that are in the Bible, are the creation of black Egyptian Africans. There are reasons why the people of Africa, with the notable exclusion of Egypt, were depicted as uncivilized, unsophisticated, and lacking in cultural achievements. A number of religious people in Europe would have been struck with horror if they knew of the cruel and bloody acts of their countrymen in the course of the human slave trade. Ruthless European adventurers with greed oozing from their pores like hot sweat promoted hunting down men, women, and children like beasts. The destruction of complete villages in order to capture the inhabitants and sell them like cattle, despite the cost in human suffering, became commonplace. The slave traders would invent on purpose fantastic tales of savagery about the Africans so that their capture and brutal transportation of them in stinking, stifling, and stuffed ships to labor on plantations of the Americas would appear to be acts of Christian concern and high-minded enlightenment. There are some who believe that, to this day, even among so-called well-educated people today, the belief that the continent of Africa was a great area of land, mostly jungle, populated by savages and vicious beasts, is the common belief. It was beyond belief that great civilizations could have been born and developed in wisdom and power with numerous empires spanning the so-called Dark Continent. Due to the harsh and cruel conditions imposed on Africans by Europeans during their wars of aggression, In Africa, kidnapping, shipping, and working us without pay. It is estimated that more than 100 million Africans were killed during this sad period of African history. Now, you must remember that the Jewish people you find today in Israel, they recount their history. You have slogans in America like "Remember the Alamo," and "Remember Pearl Harbor," and "Remember 9/11." But for Africans, they want us to forget this. They don't want us to talk about this because it is a blight on American history. Now, don't get me wrong. I live in America. I don't want anything to happen to America. I want America to grow to the level of her esteem and all the glorious words that describe the potential of America. I fought for this country back years ago, and I feel that I have given myself the right to say what's necessary. And this is history. These are facts that I'm talking about. But listen, the influence that causes galaxies to spiral and planets and atoms to spin, that causes the double helix spiral of the DNA molecules, this same spiraling power causes spiraling hair, otherwise known as nappy, kinky, curly, frizzy, wavy, woolly hair. The spiraling is called pi, the golden mean, the key to the physics of the cosmos, according to Plato. Plato lived among Egyptian priests for 13 years, reading geometry and theology. Euclid learned mathematics in Egypt before applying them elsewhere. For the pyramids and the temples of the Nile were not built by guesswork or rule of thumb. They were built by the use of mathematical propositions which the Egyptians, the Kemites, had discovered and proven. Phi is a constant value which is even more mysterious and profound in its implications than pi. Like pi, phi is a number with no arithmetical solution. The decimals just keep going on into infinity without ever repeating themselves. The unique thing about this number is that it can be found incorporated in all known organic structures, from the bone structure of human beings, to the seed pattern of a sunflower, to the spiral of a seashell. Phi is proportionate, is there, underlying all the biological structures, seeming to be a geometrical blueprint for life itself. Yes, black Egyptians knew about this. As another example of their mathematical genius, they used it to pattern the construction of the pyramids. Now, of course, its discovery was credit to the Europeans. As you can see in other statements of history, such as Pythagoras, a mathematical cult leader in the 5th century BC, he was credited with its discovery, the discovery of the golden mean, along with Leonardo Fibonacci in the 12th century. It was said that he discovered the simple numerical series that is the foundation for an incredible mathematical relationship behind phi, later to be called the Fibonacci numbers. But this, again, was a discovery of black African Egyptians. Europeans began changing the image of the origin of Egyptian African civilization and the race of people who founded that civilization in order to provide the rationale and the justification for the slave trade and its horrific dehumanization of African people. But let me share something with you. The Greek philosopher Aristotle states in the 4th century that Egyptians and Ethiopians were black, very black. The facts are these. Herodotus, a Greek writer in the 5th century BC, said Egyptians are black-skinned and woolly hair. The interesting thing about what Herodotus wrote is that he believed Egyptians to be any other color other than black. Like the Africans, he could have chosen another Greek word, but the Greek word he chose indicates that they were black, really black. If Herodotus thought the Egyptians were white, he would have used a different word. Had he thought they were brown, like so many African Americans today, he would have used a different word. But he chose a word that expresses the same root that comes from a black island or melanate or black garnet. The ancient Greek use of the melanus was precise. Egypt is in Africa. Why shouldn't ancient Egyptians be anything other than black? And yet I have met college students that didn't even know that Egypt was in Africa. Oh, what we are missing when we don't know our own history. We go to college and we learn about Greek letters and we give ourselves to the Greek culture and we just idolize what other people have done. But we are the progenitors of history. We are those that have been put down that are now in the process of resurrection. Yes, resurrection is here. God has appointed this divine time for us once again to be proud of our history and to shout to the world that God has created us with a knowledge that we have shared with the world and that the world has benefited from all of the things that we have done. You see, you need a mind to create. And our minds have been tampered with because we don't know our own history. And we don't know our own history because, now listen to what I'm saying. 70 people came down into Egypt. People who were rural, who didn't know anything, came into the greatest civilization that has ever lasted upon the face of the earth for thousands of years, in which we got along with peace with each other, came down into that nation, and all of a sudden Abraham became our father. Yeah, I gave you a few moments to think about that. One of the greatest civilizations that's ever been on the face of the earth. Information from which came the Bible. And these 70 people, Abraham became our father. That's something to really think about. Prior to the Greek use of the word, Egypt Africans were referred to their own land as Kemet. That is the black land. Kemet was the strongest term used by the ancients, running times to indicate blackness. So I just don't want you to be misunderstood about what your history is. And it's the greatest history that's ever on the face of the earth. Greeks learn from us. Romans, in turn, learn from what the Greeks taught them. And so we have given to the world. And next week, we're going to discuss Amenhotep, a great leader and mathematical genius, and also a great leader when it comes to medical treatises and writings and medical treatments, a genius. And yet they make movies of the mummy, and they have people walking around talking about, Amenhotep. I'm going to tell you something. Sometimes they make ridicule of our history. You would never see them do that about Abraham or Moses or any other religious figure. They make fun of us because we don't have the power to say stop doing that. And we won't come together. But based on our own history, we have a history to be proud of where you can hold your head up and you can become the man or the woman that you are supposed to be. You have a brain, but it's been impregnated with false information. You need a vision and you need an imagination based on the correct knowledge. And when you go into your memory, the memory of your history, then you can recreate your subconscious and create a new habit force. And out of the very center of you, your heart, you can march forward with a pride like never been seen before, because you are the child of God. God bless you. Have a good week. Happy Valentine's, and have yourself a blessed and wonderful week.